Do you know what I'm looking at through my window right now?
The lake,
Well, more than
billions of
that.
people.
Not yet today, but I'm looking at my wife is off of work, Jess, today, and I normally take care of the yard, which I enjoy, but she's off today. So she cut the grass and I taught her how to use the weed whacker. And so for the first time, right behind me, she's weed whacking the bushes by the lake. And I'm curious how this goes.
Well, it's credit to her and a credit to our microphones.
Yeah,
Not
you
a
can't hear
sound.
anything, can you?
Nope.
Well, it's an electric weed whacker, weed whipper. It's not too
Yeah,
loud.
what do you have?
Oh, one of those Greenworks with the little batteries. We have that lawnmower too. They're both very average products.
We have
Do you have one of
we
those?
have Ryobi electric
How do
lawnmower.
you like the Ryobi?
I like it.
We bought a Ryobi hedge trimmer and it broke on the first time I used it. It was like a real cheap model, so I
Yeah.
didn't go back.
Well, we got this 2 summers ago for Braden to start up a lawn service to pay for as much of his carting as he
Hmm.
can. And it's been reduced down to he mows our lawn.
Because
He's lazy.
no, your kid's not lazy.
You can be lazy and a hard worker at the same time. He's lazy about the stuff he doesn't care about.
You know, when you
So,
guys came and stayed with me for my wedding 2 years ago, I remember letting Braden drive my pontoon boat.
mhm.
And the shit-eating grin on his face, well, he was simply just, what were we cruising at, 10 miles an hour in the
Yep.
pontoon boat at most? And you could tell how pure joy that was for him. And I thought about that in relation to his racing, just exponentially magnified.
That's all he
And I
wants
was
to
like,
do.
if he loved driving the pontoon boat at 10 miles an hour, his thrill behind the race cart must be pretty high.
Yeah, it's just that's it. That's all he wants to do in life.
Hold on to a steering wheel and drive something.
Yep. That's it.
It's not the worst
Which
thing
means
to
I'm
want to
never
do.
gonna have any money in life.
You're screwed until
I'm
he's
screwed.
until he's in his 20s,
Yeah.
probably longer.
If I can cut the umbilical by then, yeah.
Hmm. Can I make a quick plug for my wife and
Yes.
myself? And then we should get into today's little 4th of July
Mhm.
episode. My wife, some of you saw on social media, she wrote 5 children's books. And I'm very proud of her. And she did it all on her own. She had no idea how to do any of this. And from start to finish, trademarking, publishing, the whole nine, creating the imagery, writing the books, getting them printed, going back sourcing through Amazon and other outlets, created 5 freaking children's books called Outdoor Kids. And Outdoor Kids was not trademarked, which I have no idea how somebody at this day and age hasn't done that yet. So she created these books and they're for sale now on Amazon.com.
Congrats, Jess.
Yeah, I'm proud of her.
Should
It's to
be.
help. We've been having a hard time getting pregnant, and so we're looking at IVF. And she wanted to like make a little money, and we always dreamed of having like kids in the outdoors, like because we're big outdoorsmen and women. And so she created outdoor learning books. They're pretty. I mean, they're not terribly elaborate. They're like for 3 to 8-year-olds, I would say, teaching them about the outdoors.
It's awesome. I watched my dad go through the writing and publishing process 3 times now, and it's a hassle. It is a grind.
She's been working every free minute for the last, I'm going to say, few months. She wanted to make sure she had 5 together before she released. So, with the hopes that people would purchase more than one if we had more than one available, and it would be more helpful for us. So, she's got a few hundred sold now, 300 or 400 since launch, which is pretty cool. And so, go to Amazon.com and search Outdoor Kids or search Jess DeWindt, and you should be able to find all of the books.
I'm pulling it up right now to see if it's that simple.
I think it is that simple.
Because you would think you type in outdoor kids and you get a billion results. They can't possibly be the thing you're looking for.
You might. And the books are so clever and they're cute and funny. What do you get?
A lot of random stuff so far. I'm going to type in outdoor kids book.
Or type in, let me look. Type in her name, Jess DeWindt.
Yeah.
Which is popping up. Animals in the Forest by Jess. She's the first auto population when I type in. Yep, just type in her name.
Outdoor Kids Jess. I'm trying the other ways people are going to do it wrong. And there we go. Critters in My Yard. Jess DeWindt.
Yeah. Animals in the Forest. Let's Go Fishing. Critters in My Yard. Whose Poop Is That? Which is our bestseller so far.
Nice.
And Let's Scout for Deer Sign. Yeah.
I can get it in 5 days or less. Oh, I can get it in 3 days.
Anyways, that's my plug. If you have any kids or nieces, nephews, or future gifts, Would love if you went and purchased one on Amazon. Just search her name. That'll get you there
And
fastest.
no, whose poop is that is updated on here?
Yeah. So the title was misspelled. Whose should be WHOSE, and she had it WHO''S. Realized it right away. But once it was like up on the back end of Amazon, and she changed it, it just like was staying there.
But it's good now.
Yeah, it's good now. Yeah.
Excellent.
But there's 5 copies that went out that are incorrect, and those are going to be the ones that are worth lots of money.
That's right.
If she becomes a big famous author.
Well, congrats, Jess. It's going for it. We're in favor of people going for things in life.
Good job, honey. All right. Should I ask the first question? We're talking questions today.
Yeah, it's 4th of July. It's freedom. Freedom to ask any question of us you want and get a serious answer most of the time.
We always shoot ourselves in the foot because we do a Q&A. We clear out our Q&A. And then it reminds people that they have questions and they send them in. So every time we do a Q&A, we get flooded with questions that week every time. And this was the case again. We have 10.
Let's do it. Question 1.
Ben. Hey guys, oddly enough, my last question above is about creating. Okay, creating. Well, here's one more after this week's Q&A. For someone normally take creatine. I think it was a miscorrect.
Is this birds and the bees chat we're about to get to have?
It must have been an autocorrect. For someone normally taking it, would there be any benefit in cutting it in the 2 weeks prior to a shorter race like a 5K or 10K just to cut those few pounds? Or is it so minimal that it would be a net zero or detriment? And this gentleman asked a creatine question in the previous Q&A.
About why not to take it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go with opinion, not science here. My opinion is that people seem to clear at different rates in terms of reducing the water weight. People have said 24 to 48 hours of stopping, minimum 96, like the water's going to be gone. And I've never found that to be the case with myself. So I don't think it's the type of thing you can just count on to gain a certain amount with creatine or to lose at a certain rate. So I would just not mess with things. If you don't have stomach problems, if you don't have cramping problems, if you don't have any issue with it during your hard workouts, why back off? It's not like one of those things that, let's say, like blood doping or something like that, where all the months you spend training with it, if you stop, you still accrued all these huge fitness gains. Creatine is not giving you huge fitness gains. It's just allowing you to push a little more through exhaustion or with extreme exertion, and it keeps your phosphocreatine bond. Everything just stays topped off. And if you remove that away, you're kind of losing a lot of it. So I don't think I would load and then taper. I would just be steady Eddie. If anything, I might just, if you're like if your dose was 5 milligrams a day, I'll go down to 2.5. That's probably as much as I tweak it. So opinion done. We can move on to Kirk.
So his original question, which now I'm looking, he wasn't the one to ask about creatine, but his question from back in 2023 asks about creatine. Okay. That's his last message. And this is exactly what I was going to say. And then I read it, and he asked about the advantages of taking creatine for water retention in like the summer to hold more water, hold water for like an ultra. Like, would that be a strategy? If I take creatine and I'm holding on to 3 pounds of extra water weight, could that benefit me in a hot, long summer race? And that logic would tell you yes, but does it really extend and translate that way or not? I wouldn't know. But it's an interesting thing to think about. But you could also just overdo the sodium for the 2 or 3 days prior and be retaining a ton of water too. And would that be the same exact thing? Probably, right?
Right. And is that type of water that's accessible from a hydration standpoint? Right. Or is that just taking water from your hydration stores? We'd need to talk to someone who understands these things.
So I am not pro creatine, by the way. I don't think it's necessary for endurance athletes. I think the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and the potential side effects of just, I think, feeling a little sluggish in life isn't worth it for me. I just haven't felt great on it. So I'm like, I don't think I think you could end up at best in the same place. I feel like, to be honest, as far as endurance performance. I know you're a fan.
Well, I think that holistic life benefits are shown to be useful, like worth taking, but I don't my take on all supplements that are supposed to be borderline performance enhancing is that if they're not illegal, you're not going to feel significantly different. And if you do feel significantly different, it's probably not legal. Like that's kind of the line between over-the-counter stuff that's just fine and performance-enhancing drugs that are banned, are that you are notably better on it than off it. They say that's not worth having. Caffeine's probably the only thing where you feel notably better, or like high dosage ibuprofen or something. So there's just very few things that you take and you're like, game changer, and it's legal. So I would say creatine's in that, where it's not a game changer, but there are a lot of adjacent health benefits that are coming out that seem to be worth taking. But I am in no way, shape, or form one of those people that are like, you're an idiot if you're not on it. I'm currently not taking creatine.
Somebody gave me a nitric oxide tablet yesterday. Okay. Put it on my tongue. It was like the size of a Tums, maybe. I was like, this ain't gonna do anything, whatever. I don't even know why they had it. They're doing some testing and the consideration of putting supplements in toothpaste that can be absorbed through your mouth, like sublingually. And so this guy works in the toothpaste and dental industry. And so they're testing out these things that I never thought of this, but you could put supplement.
Was your pump insane?
No, but he gave me the nitric oxide tablet, and I was like, okay. He's just like, just take it and see how it tastes and whatever you think. And like, I suddenly realized I was like skipping around. I was training him for an hour, so he gave it to me beforehand, and I went from like needing a nap to being like jacked out of my mind and like feeling pretty good. So I don't know if there's something to that, but these little special pills, watch out.
That may not have been.
It said it on the label. All right, next question. One random question, and maybe it's a general podcast question. Am I still getting the same bang for my buck when I break up a long session? For example, if I have a 150-minute session and I go half in the AM and half in the PM, or half outside and half on the tread, is it total time under tension, or should I really be trying to get the sessions in at once? Sometimes with work and kids, I have to break up stuff.
I'm really glad for the way they phrased that, bang for your buck, because the question I don't like getting is, which is better? One long run or split doubles? Or better is so subjective, but bang for your buck is not, because it's totally subjective to you, but you can feel bang for your buck. It's better bang for your buck if you get the work done and you can survive and do it again. And if your life allows you to split it up, like that's great bang for your buck. So we could split hairs over what's more effective from a physiological standpoint, but bang for your buck, the one you get done and feel good about and aren't wrecked from and doesn't cause a divorce, like that's the best bang for your buck workout. So yeah, you're still getting great bang for your buck splitting workouts up.
I'm going to ask a further clarifying question to you then.
Okay.
Because that's not the answer I gave to them.
Okay.
In short, although I agree with you completely. So if you have, let's say, a marathon on your calendar and you end up for your long run needing to go 10 in the morning and 8 in the afternoon because the day just required it, but you got to eat in between there and rehydrate and all of those things, like if that was all of your long runs in the lead in, do you feel like you would be ill prepared?
Yes.
Compared to, right. Okay. So you do agree with, okay. Because I took that approach sort of with the ultras on the calendar.
Yeah.
Saying like, well, like we do need
to
get into those deprived and damaged states in order for like the most adaptation to happen. So I agree with you, but at the same time, if there is a really long race, and my answer was like, honestly, if you have to split up even your recovery runs, heck, even your midweek long run, if like you need to do 4 and 4 morning and night, I really couldn't care less. However, when it comes to that long stimulus, given long races, I do feel like if we could, I'd much rather outside in the treadmill immediately. Fine. That's fine by me if that's what you have to do. But I just worried about never getting one handful of long doses in a row. Yeah.
Well, I think ultras come down to 4 main components. It's fueling, it's your mind game, it's your engine, and it's your resistance to impact. Those are the 4 things that really determine how well your ultra is going to go. And you can work on the mind game, you can work on the fueling, you can work on the engine without ever going longer than 90 minutes at a pop if you want to, but you cannot fully get ready for the ultra impact unless you are absolutely crushing and ripping big downhill workouts in under an hour, frequently. But then you also look into what happens after 3 hours to fueling and to mindset and things like that. So then they still are all tied together. So bang for your buck, sure. But total preparation for a long race, you still have to have that component addressed somehow. So all of them
even if
can't be
it's
split.
even if it's physiologically aside, just knowing what it feels like to finally be like, okay, there's that feeling I had at the end of my long runs
Yep.
where my legs are dead and I don't want to eat, but I have to. And how do I drink my water? Like even if it has no physiological benefit, just the wherewithal and familiarity, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to pivot the question around towards you from me.
Okay.
In a marathon or above, let's call it, your life says that you just really will always struggle to find hours long blocks of training. It's hard on your body. It's hard on your lifestyle. What is the minimum amount of times or frequency you would need to hit something not broken up? You need to get your long run all at once, a big hill workout, extremely long run, whatever it's going to be. What's the minimal number of times in a build, or at least like on a per month cycle, that you would feel confident programming for yourself or others for a marathon or longer event? I'm doing all split everything except for this one thing. How often does that need to occur?
Every 3 weeks.
Okay.
At minimum every 3 weeks. Would I like to see 2? Yeah, I think you could do it with 3. Every 3. I really do. In fact, it could be a viable option to show up to the start line hungry and ready versus maybe a little broken like I was.
Yeah.
So I would say I think even every 3, that'd be minimum effective dose. What do you think?
I was going to say 4.
Okay.
But I don't think I'd be super confident. I would have the biggest jump in confidence for me would go from 4 to 3. Every 4 weeks versus every 3, I think I would have the biggest jump in confidence because I could tell myself that there are some regenerative cycles that can take up to 3 weeks to fully complete and get out of your system. And the benefits will last for up to 3 weeks. So I could convince myself with 100% certainty that if I hit it hard and big every 3 weeks, I am like having a perfect cycle in between. Whereas I could not do that with 4.
Okay, so let's just lay this out one step further. I would like to get to all these questions, but we might get stuck in some rabbit holes. So let's say it is a marathon distance, and the next 2 Q&A questions are about marathons, by the way. So we're going to really beat a dead horse here, but what could you do? 10 miles weekend 1, 10 miles weekend 2, 20 miles weekend 3, rinse and repeat? Is that would that be a viable? Would that be viable?
That would be viable. I still wouldn't count 10 miles as a long run for a marathon. I would want to see 10 and 5 or something a lot. I'd want more split. But yeah, I think if I went a long damaging road run, that the key though would be damaging. You can't do a 20-mile aerobic run and be ready for the damage of a marathon if you're only doing it every 3 to 4 weeks. It would have to be quality 18 to 20 miles. And same thing with ultras. It would have to have a huge downhill component to those 3 or 4 hours. I wouldn't go out and dawdle for 3 to 4 easy long run and be like, I did it for the month. I'd have to rip some downhills and blow up my quads and say, I did it for the month.
Yeah.
So you sold 3 weeks.
I didn't try to sell you. I'm going to preface this next bout. There's a cluster of questions that came in after the episode about talking through my marathon DNF and people's opinions. You want to get opinions from people? Tell them you DNF'd and then talk it out on a podcast. I got
done it.
Dozens of unsolicited opinions, and some were criticizing my approach, saying it was not correct. Some were, and I'm glad that the takeaway from our episode wasn't, oh, it's your knee, you'll get them next time. It was like people were taking the training component of it seriously, which is my hope, right? I didn't want to just point the finger at the knee and everybody goes home happy. And so people chimed in on that. Anyway, so I think some of these, and Tyler Germain gave me his input on what he thinks I should do differently, which I will also read.
I would like to guess his.
Okay.
When we get there.
We'll get there. So I'm just going to preface that a few of these questions came in all surrounding that. So if it's a little marathon centric, you could translate this to your long trail race or anything. If you don't do marathons, it's not like this doesn't apply to you. So Scott asks, hi fellas. And this is a sentiment I got from a number of people who raced that day, by the way. Hi fellas, attempted to run grandma's marathon this weekend and ended up with my first DNF. Unlike Kirk, I have no injuries, just simply had nothing in the tank despite an incredible build and having the best long distance fitness I've ever had. I'm now sitting here 4 days later thinking, what now? Where do I go from here? I feel like I have your luxury of being able to go almost any direction from here, whether that's trying to build up to another marathon or sharpen down to a half or under. I know I can't be the only person who DNF'd a big race and don't know where to go from here. Any advice, thoughts, or words of caution? Really appreciate the podcast and you guys sharing your own fitness journeys with us. So he's saying his question is, what now? Where do I go from here?
I have two, and I kind of gave you those. I have two general feelings on what to do after a big turd gets laid. And I mean like a big race turd, not a big turd. Like the big race happens and you lay a turd. What do you do with that? And I think you either get it out of you get that taste out of your mouth as soon as it's smart and eligible to do, or you just rub your nose in it for like 16 weeks and it takes you to fuels you every morning all the way through to the next one. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's whichever works best for your situation. Sounds like if you DNF and you didn't take a ton of damage, you can turn around quickly and try to rinse that taste out quickly. Or it confirms what the race told you and there was an issue. And then you got to take care of it. Otherwise, you just simmer and stew and simmer and stew all the way through to the next logical race and let you train off some anger.
I think your advice about not needing a big, beautiful, perfect build and just jumping because you already have the fitness is the best advice that you could give anybody in this situation, because I feel like that was the best advice you gave me. These perfect and beautiful builds don't always have happy endings. And oftentimes when they're a big, beautiful, perfect build, you probably, without knowing it, one, maybe left your race in training slightly, like you took a few hits along the way that you couldn't quite fully recover from. And on race day, some matches had been used. I think that happens more often than people think. And to speak to this gentleman directly, so everybody tried to make me feel better after this. I ran 40 minutes slower at Grandma's this year than last year. It was so humid and hot, and we had no heat here prior, so all the locals really suffered. Somebody ran 25 minutes slower. It was horrible, the conditions and that. People just reached out about hey, it was all so awful. Okay?
Yeah.
And it was awful because we had no warm weather beforehand. And so it was a real slap in the face to those, if you had been heat adapted, maybe. So I think this gentleman has a bit of that going on, right? He's local. And I think there's maybe you just need to get another crack at this when either you're ready for the heat or maybe you were a little burnt. Point being, this specific example, I think you get right back on the horse, you race sooner than later. I might race this weekend, Brakken, as we talked about in the Afton Trail Race, which was my original plan, just to go do it, to go feel a race, no pressure, to just say, it's good, it's cool. You're not a loser or failure.
Yeah.
Did you just hear a ding?
No.
Oh, it must be on my end. Anyways, so I think your advice was spot on there. Find something. It doesn't matter what it is. I'd say go right your wrongs in the marathon to him as well.
Yeah. My first year taking training seriously post-collegiately is when I built to the 2012 Spartan Race World Championships. And I arrived really fit. Not too sharp, not too overworked, but one notch below that. And I had the dream race.
Right where you want
just to be. Worked. And then I found that I was third in the points series off that weekend. And so I had to run 3 more races to qualify for, it was going to be a $5,000 check or something. So I went and traveled 3 more times and spent $6,000 to win 5 back. That's, of course, guy math right there. And each race got worse. Each one I had progressively less.
And didn't even realize you nailed availability and fitness together.
Yeah, and it took so much out of my soul during the race to just stay locked in. That was the one I continued on for the second lap and showed up to race 13 miles and left racing 28 miles without fuel. It just drained my battery. And the next year I showed up really sharp and cramped out of the race. It was one of those 4 DNFs I've talked about. Yep. And I pouted. And the next Thursday night, I bought a flight for the next Friday morning and went out to Oregon and raced against John Riccardi and Max King, who had been 8th and 9th at the U.S. Olympic trial steeplechase the year prior. And Chad Trammell and a few people were out there, and I won the darn thing. My legs were there. My fitness was still there. I was feeling rough for 2 miles. And then my legs came alive and I closed hard. And it's still the most money I've ever won in any competition athletically was that day, where 30 hours prior, I didn't even have a flight because I wasn't planning on moving yet. But I went for my first jog afterwards and I was like, I'm fine, because I didn't do the whole race. I built fitness for something I didn't use. And even though I cramped pretty heavily, once the soreness from the cramping was gone, I was fine. And then I had a good fall of racing after that. I went and hit 3 or 4 more races and was winning a couple grand here and there and thought that I was just like the man. And that's kind of where the seeds of all this were planted. Like, if you fulfill your destiny on race day, it's time to back away. And if you don't use what you built, it's all still there.
We're going to move on from that because that's a great speech. I love that.
Excellent.
Okay. There's a couple people that probably need to hear that.
We think our fitness leaves if our race is bad. Like, oh, I didn't build good fitness. No, you built great fitness.
Brandon asks, Q&A question. This is out of curiosity. Kirk, when you started upping your training volume for the marathon, did you have to up your intake and or notice any additional weight loss or muscle loss? I only ask because you're pretty jacked and, in your words, a lower volume runner. In my mind, those things are correlated. And if you were a high volume athlete, I assume it would have been harder to maintain your current size. Thanks and great job trying something new and giving it your best. My weight stayed the exact same. And I think when we get to Tyler German's feedback about like, hey, stay out of the gym, you don't need to, be so broy. That's not his words. Those are mine. You'd benefit more from plyos versus raw strength movements and da-da-da. And he's probably 100% correct. That was one end of his argument. Muscle does not help you whatsoever. My appetite follows and I listen to it. And so I kept my lifting up and I lifted heavy sets of 3, heavy sets of 5, maintained literally all of my muscle mass, probably to my own detriment. But I think at 42 years old, if I was a 22-year-old kid, I would have lost weight. But with a slightly slower metabolism, years of strength, you just want to hold on to it more. And so I lifted 3 times a week and mostly heavy rep ranges. And what I noticed is I'd get munchy. I'd get like a twinge of hunger before bed again. And normally I wouldn't always be snacking after dinner before bed, but I'd be like, screw it, stack of Pringles, screw it. Like, it wasn't even great food, half a chocolate bar or something. Like, I was just keeping
You mentioned
my
night
high.
snacking a lot during this block.
Yeah, I would crave salt actually mostly. Like, it just probably because I'm dehydrated and carby, salty snacks. So yeah, so I think I just ate more. My appetite follows my training, I've noticed. So anyways, no, I didn't. But yes, it would have been probably beneficial to lose some mass before the race. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, just that the reality is it is way harder to build muscle than it is to maintain muscle with size,
100%.
with everything. Everything just comes off slowly. It's anyone who's ever tried losing weight knows that it's not easy. And it's a great problem to have if you're a muscular person. You get to maintain it. Like, that your years of work paid off and it just kind of wants to stay. At your younger years, it doesn't, but older years, it does. That can be a problem if you're not trying not to be huge anymore. But if your appetite stays up and you listen to it, muscle stays on for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I found in college. The interesting thing was, and by lower volume, like, I don't know, it's all subjective. Like, if I'm running 60 miles a week with 6,000 feet of vert, you could argue you're a 70-mile a week runner, which I wouldn't consider low volume.
Yeah.
So there's some nuances there. But in college, we would notice when our volume increased, and we didn't know if it was appetite or the body knew to retain water. Me and my roommate Derek at the time, we both sat about 2 pounds heavier when we were running big volume in college. We weren't doing much for strength work at the time. And he pointed it out to me first. He's like, I swear, when I'm summer volume training before like fall cross, I'm heavier. And then I started paying attention. I'm like, I'm kind of heavier too. That is so bizarre. And I couldn't come up with much other than either water retention or my appetite following. But we didn't lose weight. Yeah, I don't know why that would be. Summer too. We probably want to hold on to water. Our bodies do that to us too, maybe. But anything else to that?
Nope.
Okay, Matt. 2 Q&A questions, both related to altitude mountain running. I'm traditionally not the best mountain runner, but the last few years I spend my summers at 6,000 feet of elevation and higher, 2,500 to 4,000 of gain of mountain running. So there's two questions. One, does running mountains that steep help performance? Or is it so steep it's overkill? I ask because it's steep enough that it's hard to keep your heart rate up on the descent. If I run 1.5 hours, am I throwing away 45 minutes of mitochondria adaptation because my heart rate is low? He's insinuating like I run downhill and then my heart rate's not high to get back. Would a trail that allows more speed and a higher heart rate for the full run be more advantageous? And then two, do you think the higher altitudes, 6 to 10,000 feet, are actually hurting overall performance? I've heard people live high, train low to keep workouts intense. Am I just wasting my time training easier with less air when I could be getting the same cardio but training to be faster at lower altitude? Thank you.
Really good questions. Every
Great
single noun and verb in that sentence is what would go through my head living in Colorado when we were out there training. The first question to ask, I would ask him if we were on a call live, was, what has the result been?
It wouldn't be what races are on your calendar?
No, first I would, because he makes it seem like he's not training for what he's training for.
Yeah.
I would just say, has it worked yet? Have you, when you leave there, has the rest of your season gone well? If so, something's going well. So then you might be splitting hairs. But yeah, the fact is, once the uphill gets steep enough, you stop using a stride that is anything like the stride you'll ever use on race day. And so it's solely about the engine at that point, engine and heart and lungs. So that benefit is always going to be there, but it starts becoming much less running efficiency based when you're doing that. Same thing with the downhills. If your heart rate's up above like 110, 120, you're getting mitochondria benefit. You're getting the aerobic stimulus, just not a ton of it. The other thing is that if you're not able to rip every downhill, you're probably more available for training and you can do 90-minute mountain runs more frequently. So you could find yourself overthinking it rapidly, which I found myself doing all the time out there. But the other side of the coin is, yeah, if you're not doing race specific work, and if you can't access race specific intensity and pace at altitude because altitude's too hard on you, then you might be one of those people that training low, living high is the sweet spot.
I think he's living low, training high is what I'm understanding.
That's kind of what it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Summering high. If it's off season, I honestly wouldn't worry about it. I would just make sure I'm doing strides and short intervals a couple times a week, and you'll be fine.
I think you're doing more harm than good. Training high if your races are not high. I think then you take advantage of all of the help you can get at a reasonable elevation if you're racing, let's say, Eastern mountain races or whatever you have. I don't know what this person is racing. I would assume altitude mountain races. If that's the case, then absolutely continue to do what you're doing. Even for the skill of running down those steep mountains at the sacrifice of a lower heart rate, to me is worth it because I assume that's what you will also have to do in said race. So those are all things that can't be overlooked. And I find myself getting too caught up in heart rate at times now. Like I'm becoming more of a student of my own and getting very in touch. And I sort of miss the days when I wasn't, because I was still performing well, but we have all these factors that we now have to rattle around in our head. And what I'm getting at is, I think going up and suffering at altitude, but racing at sea level, I don't think you're going to be any better for it and probably feel a little worse about your fitness. I really do. But if you're racing at altitude, then I wouldn't change a dang thing. I don't know. That's where my head goes. I mean, do you really think if you lived lower altitude, ran higher altitude, but never raced at higher altitude, is that really benefiting your lower elevation racing?
Yeah.
Or only hindering because your mechanics, you can't mechanic quite as well because you're in an oxygen deprivation. So you're moving slower through space. Would that have a mechanical disadvantage?
Well, that's the key. You have to still retain some real stride running throughout. But the smartest, richest training camps on earth on the track still go to altitude every off season.
But for chunks of time, and they live there.
That's what he's doing. He's spending his summers at altitude.
But how high is he staying?
I thought he said 6,000. Thought he summered at 6,000, has access up to 8 to 10, and then comes back down the rest of the year.
I'm gonna have to re-pull this.
Maybe we are operating under two different understandings of this message. However, while you look that up, I'm going to talk to that part.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I guess he is staying at 6,000 feet. Okay. Never mind. I thought he was like going up to 6,000 feet.
You thought he's just getting doses of hypoxia.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm an idiot. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Forget what I just said.
That advice would have been good for that.
Yeah, never mind.
My general take, and I'm not lumping him into the general runner, but my take is that the general population is always undertrained and underdeveloped. So the more minutes you can spend with your heart rate elevated at all, for most people, the better. And if you can get a 60-minute run going fast and having downhills, but you can only do that a few times, or you can get a bunch of 90-minute runs because altitude's limiting you on the up and it's too steep to come down, that's just more work. And most people's engines sucks. Again, I'm not saying that his does, but our engine sucks. And I'm sure that pros look at you, Kirk, and said his engine sucked. Like,
oh yeah,
it doesn't.
Big time.
But it's underdeveloped compared to an elite pro who spent his entire life doing one stride. So I think we can always benefit from more engine building. But the key thing is you can't lose your stride. You can't spend so much time steep that you lose your flat stride. And that is a real thing, especially if you don't have 10,000 miles under your belt prior.
So keep doing what you're doing, but make sure you get some flat efficiency work in maybe once a week.
Yeah.
And might be well-rounded. Leave it at that.
Yeah. The hardest thing I had out there was finding ways to get real speed work in.
Yeah.
Because I was so limited by my lungs.
Yeah. That breathy feeling of being at altitude when you don't live there, it's just like it's air hungry. It's so interesting when you start running hard, especially living, we live at under 1,000 feet here, like 900 feet. You're even lower in Milwaukee, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Johnny asks, I want to ask you something about what Brakken told you about training too hard or something like that, being ready too soon. How do you know when you're ready and need to pull back earlier than programmed? I feel like I was peaked in March for Houston High Rocks and was overdoing it already when I didn't feel like I was overdoing it when I hurt his back. My so-called A race was supposed to be in Miami doubles in April. So what he's saying is he's wondering, did I overdo it in hindsight? Like I was actually peaked too early and should I have held back? Did I lose my window? How do you know? How do you know when you're ready and need to pull back earlier? That's the question.
So I think the true peaking too early thing is it's a misnomer, because peaking involves ratcheting up of intensity and reducing volume and fatigue to peak. So when people talk about that, what they're really saying is I was really fit and I couldn't hold on to it. That usually means overtrained. Not
I agree with you.
So I just want to, it doesn't diminish what he's feeling. I just want to get the same like verbiage down on paper here for people listening, that we're all on the same page. You can't accidentally peak unless you're in the middle of a race chunk where you're racing a bunch and you've reduced volume as a recovery and you accidentally peak because you raced 4 weeks in a row and you lowered your volume and raised your intensity and like you found a peak. That's really the only way to accidentally peak. What most people are saying is I got really fit and I worked really hard and then I couldn't sustain that anymore. So with that being said, I don't know if you can feel it, but the warning signs are that you're changing the deal in favor of the deal during workouts too often. Kirk talked about changing the deal in workouts a lot. And we usually use it to mean I had 8 by 1,000. It was too hot. I changed it into 10 by 400 to try to get something done. But I'm saying when you have 8 by 1,000 done and you turn it into 10 by 1,000 because you feel great, and then you add on 4 by 400 because you just got to feel it and you have energy to spare, like that's changing the deal in favor of the deal. It got better for the dealer. They're getting more out of it. When you do that, I would say more than like once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks, you're adding a significant amount of training in that's the sign that you might be headed for this. When you start adding on mid-workout, you're probably heading towards it if you're doing it consistently.
You feel like the man or woman, you're clicking off great workouts in consecutive weeks and sessions and you're embracing it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the option to do so is gone. And you're like, what happened? I just don't feel like I did for these previous weeks. And the peek behind the curtain, and I work with Johnny, is he races way too much. He races and races and races and races. And it's anything and everything he can get his hands on. And I think the overtraining between under recovering from races, getting to the next event, there was probably a peak in there in quotes, because literally he raced himself into a peak with some easy weeks leading up, and he may have actually peaked and then under recovered after that. Like, I think that could be his case. Idea was to build in Houston and then a race in Miami, but the lead up and all the other distractions that he allows to creep into his racing life is probably the main cause. And I think that does happen to a lot of people. But I think the most important thing and the most important message is we didn't usually miss our peak. We mostly are just under recovered and overtrained and we're behind the 8 ball. I think that happens way more often than like I peaked too soon.
It's really tricky, but we have to remember that if we trusted the plan in the first place and the plan's going way too well, it doesn't mean the plan was bad and we have to do more. You can simply execute that good, trustworthy plan really well and just feel good more often. Even if it had you undershooting by a slight amount, that amount that keeps you feeling great, just roll with it. It's a long year. It's a long life. When we up the plan that was already decided upon, oftentimes we're extrapolating how we currently feel to how we should feel later in the future, but we don't know that this roller coaster is about to have a dip coming up. So it's not most people's concern in training. I feel so good, I need to do more. That's not most of you listening. But if you do feel that, it's a warning sign if you start doing it too often.
Well, and he says that his back went on him. It did. He lost weeks of training. So then the question is, well, maybe he was still feeling good, but then he succumbed to injury, and he did. He was laid up, right?
Yeah.
And I can ask myself that very question. Is it simply you reached too much and that's why the injury happened? And honestly, man, that's always going to be a hindsight thing, and I'll learn from it and hopefully make note of the cues that happened before you got injured.
Yeah.
Really be familiar with the training you did before the back went on you, before my IT band, went on me. And then as your next build, once you're healthy, keep those cues in mind. And as Brakken mentioned, like, stay available and don't put your foot so close to the flame in training, like as you did the previous time. And so I think that's a big one too. And the injury thing is like always hindsight, and you just need to learn from it and hopefully get ahead of it the next time. And I think that's part of it for him too, is like, there's nothing you could have done, Johnny, other than like, now we know.
Yeah.
It's it.
It's almost impossible to self-identify in the moment.
Yeah. Next one, Tyler German chimed in after listening to the DNF episode. Tyler German, 213 marathoner, has run under 216 many times, is very accomplished. And he's on his second round of Achilles issues. He had to get some surgery, took time off, came back too aggressively, has to take more time off. He's, had a mess here this last year, and I'm sure very frustrated. So he's dealing with his own injury situation as well. And I'm rooting for him to come back. Anyways, Tyler, he's been on the podcast twice, I think, maybe 3 times. So he just DM'd me this on Instagram. He says, 2 suggestions. Feel free to ignore. You're the coach! ! And I appreciate that he took the time to write. So it said, I'd swap out one of your strength days for a plyo day. You've got plenty of raw power, but at a certain point, that muscle recruitment can't be translated to efficiency. 100% correct there. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah.
Yep. So he's right. You pair it with some good pop and efficiency, then you'll really be able to translate the gains. Just right at first, since there's definitely some adaptation to that sort of pounding. Second, I know you love your treadmill vert days, and this is where I wanted to chat out with you. Second, I know you love your treadmill vert days, but I think you take more damage on those than you think. If you can't do land run, just skip that quality day. 2 quality days a week are plenty. I just don't think the vert translates to land running. Efficiency is the component of LT type work that's really so valuable, and you don't get that with 4 miles per hour at 15% running. I'm doing a ton of biking right now, and I'm building engine, but I know all too well that doesn't mean anything as far as my return to running. It's just too different of an activity. Discuss on the pod if you'd like! !
It's kind of what not specifically the incline, but I thought the gist of his message as a pro marathoner was going to be a little bit more like a pro marathoner.
Which he's hinting at in a very nice way.
Yeah,
About
it's
your muscle isn't helping you.
well, and his comment about the incline is true, and I like that mentality. I think it's true to a point. I believe that engine is engine. He believes, and I agree with, efficiency is not efficiency. And that the latter stages of a marathon, efficiency is, well, everything to get to that point, having taken as little as possible. So in that vein, he's right. And I think that my spin on that would be keep the incline work as aerobic volume. You can't run 100 miles per week intelligently, safely. I don't think any of us would recommend that for you. But if you can get the time on feet of that incline running, good, but keep all intensity for road intensity. I think that's my spin on that, is that it just muddies the water when intensity gets involved.
So that was my takeaway that I think I'm going to take from that suggestion. I think he's dead on. I don't think running at 15% or 30%, which I was even doing at times, just because it's worked so well in the past for trail racing, and I felt good about long duration fitness. Anyways, I don't think 4 to 6 mile per hour running at 15% translates to efficiency on flat ground.
Yeah.
My argument back, and I sent him a 2-minute voice message in response, and then we had a little conversation, was like, well, with injury history, it keeps me available. And we had trained for mountain races for years, and I built the best fitness of my life doing so with the treadmill as a tool, and old habits die hard, right? And so I'm so familiar with it, and it's working. And maybe it's working right up to the point where it's not. And every other week I was doing an uphill quality session on the treadmill just to stay available was my reasoning. But I do think he's very correct. And like, there's probably not a place as regularly for uphill quality. But I'm not 100% convinced that's still true, because engine is engine. And how much can my body really take? I already got an overuse injury, and it wasn't from running uphill on the treadmill. It was from flat ground running, pushing hard for duration. So would have I ended up in that position sooner? For me, I have an injury history. Most of us do. Would Tyler Germain be better off? Well, he has an Achilles issue, so the answer would be no, most likely, but subbing out for just some of his aerobic work at 15% on the treadmill to stay injury free. Like, when you're 42 years old, and that's something that people forget. I'm not 20, I'm not 30, I'm not 35, I'm 42. And like, just staying above water and being able to show up for tomorrow's session. And if that means hopping on the incline treadmill to do so, it might just have to stay in for long-term like availability. So I waffle over that whole thing. He's 100% right until you're not.
Playing devil's advocate and taking his side on the one piece he talked about is that he said, I wonder or think your treadmill incline sessions are causing more damage than you think about. And you're not feeling impact damage, but it doesn't mean you're not showing up to the next quality session cardiovascularly tired, which then requires you to overwork muscularly to compensate for that fatigue. So I guess I don't know how I could ever quantify that, but it is an interesting thought that,
well,
if you're already in your mind, potentially a red flag was that you might have overworked some quality. If you showed up to that already slightly compromised without knowing it, then whatever percent you went over may have even been more. Following his line of logic, which again seems logical.
And the highest heart rate responses I get and got are on the treadmill, hot, sustained incline trainings, the highest sustained heart rate. I can't sustain that on real terrain for as long, but on the treadmill I can at incline because of what it does to me, sitting in the hot room and just power output. And so the metabolic, my legs feel fresh after it's done, as we've talked about. You can hit an incline quality session. Next day, you walk around and be like, did I do quality yesterday or did I not? Whereas if I do a flat quality session with 12 miles of quality in a marathon build, for the next 2 to 3 days, I know I did quality on that Tuesday. But the metabolic component, that I can't speak to. You don't feel that in your legs.
On a one-off basis. So it's interesting. And
it's good stuff to think about.
And he will never agree with how we train for OCR or trails or mountains. And we will never 100% agree with how he trains for a marathon. but we can glean things from how he thinks about and trains for a marathon, and he could glean some things from how we think about broken running. But the fact is, like, our lane is our lane, and we'll never quite understand his lane like he understands it.
Yeah, and like like if you take a lighter guy or girl, weight doesn't even matter. Like I feel like I have to work so hard climbing that I
Yeah.
need to keep it. If I have a trail race, like I can't just run roads and then go climb efficiently because I got to drag this body up the hill. Whereas like I feel like not to stereotype, but 130-pound runner can sort of handle the hills from flat ground training because it's not nearly as costly for them. And so for me, it's like I suck at climbing. When I started, I'm horrible. I'm so afraid to lose that arrow in my quiver I worked so hard
Yep.
for that. Like I keep it in because like if I don't, my climbing sucks
Yeah.
compared to my potential. So it's like trying to have it all. But if you're trying to thread the needle in a marathon, I think his advice is perfectly valid, sound, and probably the best advice you could get.
And when I say lane, I don't mean stay in your lane, Tyler or Kirk. I mean, like, he runs in the marathon lane. And
And
to
he's
his
damn
mind,
good.
yeah, and in his mind, he would never consider working on mountains on the off chance he has to go run them,
Right.
because I'm not going to encounter a mountain in my main lane here. Whereas you, and it makes 100% sense to you, if I let this go, it's going to be so hard to come back when I need it. Where he's like, I'm not going to need it. And if
Yeah.
I do, I don't care how that goes. I'm going to race hard. I've got a big engine, whatever. Well, it'll be what it'll be. Whereas you're like, if I do encounter that, I want to be able to crush the uphills. And
Yeah.
so,
And
like,
I've watched him run uphill, by the way, and he's very, very fast
great uphill
without
runner.
doing that. Yeah, he's so
Yeah.
quick. Yeah.
But you wouldn't be a great uphill runner or even a good one if you didn't practice hills.
I don't think so.
So, anyway, point is, he can learn, I'm sure, a thing or two about cross training from you, and you could learn several things about marathoning from him. But until you decide you want to live the marathon life, I think you'll always have a give and take. He will have
100%.
no give or take because
And that's how you run 213.
he's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like his
Yeah.
message because he could have been haughty. He could have been, I told you so. Instead, he was constructive and logical.
Well, and I like that anybody, even if I didn't like what they had to say, took the time to try to help. And I
Did you
actually
have
liked what
any?
he had to say. Huh?
Did you have any you didn't like what they said to you after the race? Because I got some recently I didn't like
About you or about me?
about me. So, and I haven't even
Oh, yeah.
raced.
I got a half a dozen that rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah.
And I think
Like
you have a
speaking as if they were coaching me through all my mistakes. Well intended though. Like nobody was like, you suck. It was more like it just didn't come off right, maybe. What was I gonna say? Oh, and as far as the whole sub out your strength and like the lowest hanging fruit that he's talking about is mass. And that is correct. It is just correct. Do I need to be doing strength work 3 days a week? I do not. I should let it go completely, do only body weight plyos and be done with it and see what happens to my physique and my running over the next 2 years. And I could end up taking gobs of time off of my potential in a marathon. There's no doubt about that. I don't know about walking through life.
That's it,
I don't,
though. A marathoner never thinks about walking through life.
because they all drown in their t-shirts and you would never pick them out from a chess player.
And it's not important to them.
No, correct. And yet I run a personal training business and live in the gym, and it is important to me. So
that
it's
is the line between doing it for your life and as your life.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
No.
And I know that, and I know better. But and what I understand, typically what you see in these elite, if they're in a big training block, what you're typically going to see out of, let's say, like Minnesota Distance Elite, they've done an amazing job with their athletes. I mean, they are firing as well as any distance project in the United States with their top end athletes. I mean, their guy won the marathon. Their women, Annie Frisbee and Dakota Lindworm, speaks for themselves. She was our number one Olympian. Like, they're killing it. And what do you see? You usually see a Tuesday long threshold session where they're grinding. They're putting in solid mileage. Friday, they hit their turnover work. Maybe their only track session of the week, but they hit it consistently. Then they go out for a long run with no real pace objective on a Saturday. I think I've seen Tyler go up to 27, 28. He's gone far, but I rarely see them do like quality in the long run. And Tyler, you can correct me, but it's like a big Tuesday with some long stuff. the turnover efficiency, it's all flat, and then a long run Saturday, and they repeat that cycle in their build over and over and over. There's no treadmill at 15%. Maybe there's some hill work once in a while, but that's what you see a lot of the big marathon groups doing.
Yeah.
And that formula works for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more clean, crisp, compact, threshold-ish strides you can stack in a year, the better you're going to be. You cannot get efficient through anything other than blunt force volume. And what he said, like, that's there's no magic to threshold training, but the magic is reps.
Yeah.
Reps upon reps upon reps.
Being able to not even put any mental or emotional, like any thought into what your body needs to do while it's doing. You can almost do it asleep for quite a while before you have to even engage.
Yeah.
Like your body just clicks right in because you do it so often. It's so familiar. It's so efficient.
So before we move on from it, my favorite take out of all of this probably isn't the take you'd pick out or that most people heard there, but his reassurance, like 2 quality a week is plenty. You just don't expect to hear that from a pro, but a pro understands if you make good use of it and you surround it with volume and you're smart with the work, 2 is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I like hearing that.
I agree. Yeah, 2 is plenty. Sometimes 2 is too much, depending on how you respond. All right, 2 more questions. We're going to get to them in the next 5 minutes. Here's my question, and maybe this is better for a Q&A. Is there any benefit to purposefully training at times under-fueled? We run back-to-back long runs to mimic the back half of an ultra and experience running on tired legs. I know you guys believe in compromised running and purposefully running while the body is impaired. Can doing a training session under-fueled, maybe with no or less water, simulate the last third of an ultra or longer race?
All right, so there's the Kilian Jornet approach, which is...
He's asking, sorry, just so I don't... he basically says sort of a different kind of compromised running is his sort of the lens.
And it's a good question. Kilian Jornet famously would go for 8 to 12 hours in the mountains as a boy with essentially no fuel. And he credits that with his ability to be very efficient with fuel usage in ultras. And he's going to go down as the greatest ultra runner of all time for a reason. The scientists will tell you that there's no real purpose to ever be underfueled, ever, because the difference between coming in muscularly compromised and nutritionally compromised is vastly different in terms of what it can cost you after the fact and as a ramification for that. The whole low carb crew will tell you that you should never eat anything before most of your runs. And we've gone lots of our life without eating anything before most of our morning runs. This is one of those things that does come down to how do you want to balance your personal beliefs versus what science is trying to tell you. And I don't think I can tell you it other than you know what it feels like to finish up a long run or a quality session if you are underfueled and you know in the next couple days and weeks if it was worth it or not. I think that's as specific as I'm going to get.
I mean, science will tell you if you can enter ketosis and use fat as your primary fuel source, that you don't need to necessarily have as much in your lunch bucket while running. And if you are not ketone dependent, you rely on carbs and glycogen in the immediate, and you need a constant supply of it. And my response to him is exactly what you led with. I said, I don't even give a crap about the session itself. It's the ramifications afterwards and how much of a hole you are for your next session. If you went and ran an ultra and you get that ultra feeling and I'm completely empty and I am bottomed out, and then you pay the piper for that and you take a week or 2 off and then you ramp back up. Well, if you're aiming for that in training, like I want to feel that empty feeling, then really what you're doing is damaging in a way which might make you less available for your training moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's not about the session that you're currently doing. It's about that whole week afterwards. And where am I going to be underwater before I even start my next training week? And that is where I am more adamant about the fueling, not in the moment, whatever, go do whatever you freaking want during. I think you can have great outcomes on very low fuel for some people. I really do. At least up to 2 hours or even more. But the aftermath is the ramifications are big.
They are. So if they do want my opinion, my personal opinion, having tried both, is that I would way rather for a long distance race, get more time practicing fueling and building the biggest possible engine rather than coming in with less practice on how I fuel and fueling under duress. And as a result, probably getting less volume in because I'm under fueled, but knowing exactly what it feels like to run hungry. I'd rather not get hungry during a race because I'm so good at fueling and adapting to it on the fly and knowing all the different scenarios my stomach gives me, rather than just say, I think I'm going to need 30% less fuel than the person next to me and hope that it goes well. So my opinion is train with fueling rather than compromise it via fuel. Compromise it with a billion squats before you ever compromise with fueling. And that's coming from someone who probably went 10 straight years without eating before anything other than a race.
I agree with you. We have 1 minute for the last question. We're going to do it because I think we can.
I have full screen on right now, so I didn't even see the time.
Adam asks, I'm having trouble adding strength/muscle while running high volume.
Yep.
I lift pretty consistently, but have been pretty much the same strength for the last few years.
Yeah. I'm just going to say what Hunter McIntyre told me after my first high rocks. Take 6 weeks and don't care about your running whatsoever. He said, take creatine, eat gobs, lift 3 to 4 times hard per week, and never run on the same day as you're lifting, and see what happens, and then get back to it.
I don't know what this person is training for, Adam. So that is largely dependent, but you look at folks like Rich Ryan, who took a hypertrophy block, didn't run much, gained the muscle he needed, then moved on. I hate to say it, it's going to be such slow progress at best, even if you're overeating well, endurance training. It just, you're eating yourself is what ends up happening, especially on the longer efforts, and you're just going to stunt your growth. If you really care about growth, whether it's for vanity or for hybrid performance, you know, maybe you go for 3 aerobic runs a week of 45 minutes and they're chill and you lift heavy as heck and eat a ton. That would just maintain your running just enough so you're not like out of touch with it. That's what Hunter does generally. Like 2 or 3 runs a week of very low intensity and short duration just to keep a half of that arrow in his quiver. And he just, I mean, he'll eat and lift heavy 2-a-day sessions sometimes. And you just focus on it. That's exactly it. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to happen for you, man. I just don't. You can't have your cake and eat it too, just like I want with my performance. It's impossible.
I've tried. I gained 11 pounds in 1 block of training doing that. It's just the only way. You have to cut out the running if you want mass. We might need to do a training Tuesday on this, spelling out exactly how that rare runner who just wants to bulk up needs to go about doing it, because it's difficult and you don't want to do what we're going to tell you need to do.
Yeah, and I understand it. A lot of us have a passion for running, but don't necessarily enjoy how we feel and look in order to run our fastest. And that's a tricky thing. Tricky thing. All right, I think that's it. We're keeping it short and sweet for the 4th. Be safe. Buy children's books. Any other things you want to get off your chest, Brakken?
I have nothing to get off my chest.
Brakken has a bad back. Wish him healing vibes to Bracken's back.
Tweaked my back twice this week.
Clapping his hands the second time. We're going to leave
my hands. 1 clap. 1 solid clap spasmed my back. So I'm broken.
You know you're getting old. Thanks for listening, guys.
Enjoy the 4th.